Hello, Sid Roth here. Welcome to my world, where it's naturally supernatural. My guest had a dream where he saw the Second Revolutionary and Civil War. He saw the history of the United States, but not from our perspective, from God's perspective. It was shockingly different. He saw our history, past, present, and future. Interested? Rick Joyner, you are known as a man that has prophetic dreams. You had a dream that resulted in 5 million books distributed worldwide. It was called The Final Quest. But you had a recent dream that you told me how important this was. Explain.
Well, it was so dramatic and so important, the content, the message of the dream. I felt like in some ways my whole life had been a preparation for receiving this dream, for understanding it, and for being able to convey it.
In a sentence, what is this? What was the essence of this dream?
Well, there were some really important factors in it, but one of them was I was able to see our U.S. history from heaven's perspective. And it was very different, radically different. You know, we say there's fake news. Well, there's fake history out there too that has been, I think, colored by prejudices, by political opinions and things like that. But this was our U.S. history from heaven's perspective, but also a revelation of God's purpose for our country.
Tell me a little bit about the dream.
Well, to start off, I saw what I call dread champions. These were champions, spiritual champions that are being raised up to go after and pull down strongholds, major strongholds. And I was standing in line with these people thinking, I'm going to get sent out. And an angel came up to me and said, come with me. You've got a different assignment. So I followed him, and I went, and I was taken from this big device. It's hard to describe, but on the face of it, I could see our U.S. history from heaven's perspective. And as I moved from left to right, just walking along in front of this, time progressed through the Revolutionary War, through the Civil War. And I knew that if I went all the way to the end of this, I would be able to see our own times from heaven's perspective. So I saw things as I was walking in front of it, but my goal was I want to see where we are now and how are we seen now from heaven and heaven's perspective.
And you actually saw the future in this dream. That's pretty exciting to me.
Well, I did see some things, yeah.
Why do you believe God has entrusted you with such powerful end-time dreams?
Well, you know, almost every one of them, it seems, is going to be really controversial. When he gives me something, I'm not trying to build a ministry. I don't care if it affects that. I don't care. I want to be sure I'm conveying the message accurately. And I've decided I don't care what the message is, I'm going to give it. I asked him a number of times, why do you always give me these real hard words? And that's what he said. He said I was mean enough to actually share them.
Well, you said another thing that was interesting. Yeah. There are going to be some deadly, to the devil that is, intercessors that are raised up. And you were not in that particular line. So in other words, that leads me to believe there are lots of roles in this end-time army.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think these champions, if you will, I think they're the ones that Jude talked about, or that are spoken of in the book of Jude, quoting the book of Enoch, that he spoke about the Lord coming with these mighty ones. These are mighty ones. They walk in extraordinary authority. I believe we're going to see a number, thousands actually, who are going to be doing the same things Jesus did they're going to be walking in an authority I don't think we've seen since the first century. And they're champions, but each one of them had a specific enemy to go after. And they were also told not to just defeat this enemy, they were told to destroy it.
So give me an example of some of these enemies.
I think like racism, bigotry. I think the whole issue of abortion, of child trafficking, there are things like that that are, many of these things were ultimate issues in our times, but it's what's at the root of them. Racism is built upon two of the ultimate evils of the human heart, fear or pride. But pride leads to the fall, and even God will resist the proud, but gives his grace to the humble. But that's one of the things, the important issues I think I saw in this dream of the way God or heaven saw our history and our purpose. For example, we thought we won the Revolutionary War, and we won some things. But from heaven's perspective, the main purpose of that war was not getting independence from Britain, but it was to establish a place where it was truly believed, demonstrated, and lived that all men are created equal, and there is liberty and justice for all, not just some.
You're talking about even in our Constitution. That's the way it was designed, but it certainly didn't play out.
No, the Constitution didn't work for some races. It was, it really turned out to be liberty and justice for some. And what I was shown was if we had gotten on track to fulfill our purpose after the Revolutionary War, there would have been no need for civil war because there would not have been slavery, could not have been slavery in our country. There could not actually even be discrimination here. So we would have not needed the Civil War. And if the Civil War had gone on to some of the ultimate purposes and accomplishing those, there would have been no need for a civil rights movement. We wouldn't have a lot of the discord that is rising again today because these ultimate issues have not been faced and destroyed, not just defeated, but destroyed.
Is that why we're going to have this second revolutionary civil war?
I think that is one of the main reasons. That there are others, but that is one of them. A key word that I saw of our purpose was liberty. We were known as the American Republic, but the main thing was liberty and justice for all, underlining all. But
you know what I find interesting? This current millennial generation, their major word is we want justice, but the way they're going about it, even though they don't know it because they don't have the gray hair like we do, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and it's not justice.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's another subject. The second part of the dream showed where we are now. It showed the second revolutionary civil war was inevitable, right, and successful. What does this really mean? Stay with us. Rick, your dream ended with a strong word from God about this war. What did God say?
Well, I saw it written in fiery golden letters. It said, the Second American Revolution / Civil War is inevitable, it is right, and it will be successful. And then the dream ended.
Would it have been possible at a certain point to avoid this second revolutionary civil war?
I think so. And this is a question I still have, because up until then, I would have said, yeah, if you don't change your direction, you're going to end up where you're headed. And we are, as a nation, headed for another civil war, but plenty of time to avoid it, plenty of time for changes and things to get resolved. This changed my thinking. It's inevitable. It's not going to happen without this. So now excuse me,
will this occur in your lifetime, in my lifetime, in your lifetime?
I believe it will. Now, I wasn't given a date or timing on it. Mm-hmm. I have a sense, and sometimes you get a sense from these things that because of how dramatic they are, that it's imminent. But I do think it is, we're moving towards this faster than I would have expected. Even since I had that dream in December, I see things moving, they're picking up pace.
Now, you said this war would be in the natural and in the spiritual. Tell me about both.
Well, I think the degree to which we win the spiritual war. I think another great awakening is not just, I think it's absolutely essential. And just like the first great awakening is linked to the Revolutionary War, second one to the Civil War, there are things that are going to be illuminated in what I believe is already beginning, the third great awakening in America. But I believe it's going to illuminate things that can no longer be tolerated in our country. We've fallen to an ultimate depravity, according to Isaiah, of calling good evil and evil good, honoring the dishonorable and dishonoring the honorable. There's some things like that already we're at the place where there does have to be this resolution. But we also, I think, to the degree that we can win the spiritual war, it can lessen the cost of the war in the natural. Now, what I did see into the future were cities burning. Not all of them, I just saw some. I don't know how that's going to...
Did you recognize any of these cities?
I didn't recognize them, but I felt like I knew which ones they were.
Could you mention a couple?
You know, my first one was Chicago. I felt like Chicago was one. I felt like New York was one. And again, you know, to what degree, you know, if we really took on Second Chronicles 7:14, humbled ourselves, prayed, sought his face, repented, and this comes upon land, we may still have, I think we will still have another revolutionary civil war, but it doesn't have to be that devastating. I think to the degree that that has become a reality in our land with God's people, he says, if my people, and we stand up for the truth the way he's called us to and become defenders. Every one of us is called to be a champion of the faith, a champion for his purposes and his will and his ways. I think it could greatly lessen both the devastation, the casualties, and everything else from the conflict.
How bad was the devastation that you saw?
It was really bad. It was, I know a lot of people, you say civil war, they think pitched battles between armies. I don't think it's going to be like that at all. I think it's going to be in neighbors against neighbors. It's going to be, in some ways, much worse than the others.
I have to believe when you saw history from heaven's perspective rather than ours, even you had a pretty good paradigm of God, but even your paradigm changed.
I was profoundly humbled by some of the ways I had viewed history and our history and things. But one thing too but really encouraged me, in which when I saw that word at the end, it will be successful. One of our main ultimate purposes as a nation was liberty, because where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And we were supposed to be a special place where the Holy Spirit could do whatever he wanted to do in our land, where he could move, where we were truly solid on the foundation of our Judeo-Christian heritage. And I believe where I believe America's seen in the book of Revelation, it points to our roots and our foundational purposes, and where I believe we're going to be a nation where the Holy Spirit is especially at home.
But we have a destiny, and we haven't touched it yet, I believe.
No, we haven't. And you know, one reason, I know when I shared this with some politicians, where they think of, well, the Civil War, they couldn't have fought these battles on these other things. You only have to fight one battle, but their thinking is all political. somehow we've got to get beyond thinking politically, and we got to take the leadership. We've got to fight for the truth.
So it's not Democrat or Republican, it's the Christian that is going to be in the forefront in this war.
I think so. I did see a third column. I call it a third column. It's like it wasn't a third political party. It wasn't political, but it was a major force for influence in our country that drew the best from both sides. I believe that is supposed to be what the church is called to be.
All right, okay, so you've got a little bit, just a snippet of this. But the key question now, Rick, is how do we prepare for what's coming next? Now, we know what justice is from man's perspective, but what does God believe for justice?
Well, one thing I believe is his heart for justice is that he wants all people treated fairly. We've got to start seeing from a higher perspective. I don't think we can understand justice as, when you just get down into the weeds of what you can do technically and trying to win cases on technical maneuvering and all, rather than getting back to what is just, what is true, what is right, what is fair in this situation.
How do we prepare physically and spiritually for this war?
Well, if in the cases of countries that know they're about to get invaded or something, or there's about to be conflict, what kind of preparation would you do? I would be buying food, resources, all kinds of things to defend myself, my family, there are things like that. But think, okay, what we would be doing in the natural, apply it to the spiritual too. I want Bibles stored up, Bible studies, and things like that, because we were down there in the Katrina catastrophe and all that. They didn't have power or anything else. We had a generator. We could have run videos. They would have watched anything we would have put on the screen. We got to look at this as harvest time, and we got to look at it for being able to reach our neighbors and help them. And to me, that means storing extra stuff, thinking not just of ourselves, but being Joseph's storehouse. There are many ways that I think we need to prepare in the natural, but then do the same thing in the spiritual.
Give me a couple examples in the spiritual.
Well, like I said, I think of Bibles as the weapons of heaven, and the truth can be books, it could be tracts and things like that. Water, food, that's the Word of God. And
how do you prepare spiritually with your own intimacy with God?
Well, I have a resolve that every day I try to get closer. I try to take my thoughts captive. I'm resolved to turn all of my vain imaginations into intercession, where I'm not just wasting my time, wasting my mental energy, and in every way getting to know Him better, getting to know His voice better, being more obedient in every way that I can. But I want to know His ways, not just His acts. And I've been in pursuit,
What does it mean? I want to know His ways and not just His acts. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't want to just know what He's doing. I want to know why He's doing it.
And that's that whole thing of the American history you saw from heaven's perspective.
Yeah.
Now you know the whys.
Right. I know some of them.
Right.
I mean, there is so much more. I was given a glimpse. This whole thing was the most profound thing I remember seeing in any dream like that, but I still know it's a glimpse. We all see in part, know in part. I believe I've been given access. I can go back to that place and see more. And I will be shown more, but I consider all I was shown still just a tiny part.
You told me something, and this is amazing, because anyone that understands the United States of America understands the debt we are under, but you told me you saw the end. You told me you saw the debt situation in the United States. What was it like?
There's a jubilee coming, and He's going to pay all debts.
Can you imagine this country being debt-free? I am seeing the greatest awakening the world has ever seen. I am seeing the glory of God covering this earth. I am seeing people walking in the same power that Jesus walked in, and even greater. And that means you.